There we go. Well, thanks. Welcome to Media Lab this morning. I'm on my own today. Our presenter had some things come up and wasn't able to present for us this session, and I was bummed, but we could pivot easily. And so hopefully we'll get Deanna and her tools in the schedule for next time. But for this morning, I'm excited. I dug up a training that I did for some teachers in Twin Bridges this last spring that went really well, and I was excited to talk about Hyperdocs and multimedia text sets. So we're going to dig into those today, and I think they'll go really well with what we were talking about with Sarah Dahl last week, and just kind of a continuation of that session. I'm going to share a PBS program with you today. We'll talk about Hyperdocs and multimedia text sets. I'll show you some examples, how they might be used. I'll walk you through building one or two of them, and then I'll give you some time to explore and try starting to build something and share it with us, and we'll see how it went. So the first thing I'll do is talk about Antiques Roadshow. That was why I asked that question. How many people can you put in the chat box? If you do watch it, say yes. If you don't watch it, say no. Tell me in the chat box if you have watched it or do watch it or don't. We've got some no's. There's a yes. There's a yes. All right, not regularly. I have in the past, have before. That's fine. It's not one of those shows that you can't miss. Like it's different every week, but it's not like an ongoing storyline. Awesome. So we have some examples here. So for those that aren't as familiar with it, it's a traveling show, and it's produced in Boston at the GBH PBS station there. And they take the show on the road to different communities, and they invite people within that community to bring their antiques to this. And they have professional antique appraisers on hand, and they have a conversation with these people about their antique, and they ask the person to tell the story about where it's from and where they got it. And then they give an appraisal, and then they always give an estimated value. And my family loves to, hear the estimated value and then have a friendly debate about whether or not we would sell it in that moment to try and get the money for whatever it's worth, or hold on to it. And so 9 times out of 10, we're not big antique buffs. So we often are like, oh yeah, sell that thing, get the money. But it's kind of a fun thing to watch. And it's very interesting to see how something that looks not very valuable could actually have quite a bit of value. What's cool about Antiques Roadshow is that we do have a collection of resources for teachers on PBS Learning Media for using the show in your classroom. So if you go to PBS Learning Media and you just type Antiques Roadshow in the topic box, there's the collection right there. And they've taken a few of the clips, not the whole collection, but a few of the clips, and made it a real short clip, and then put some resources alongside it. So I'm going to make sure that my share is optimized because I want to show one of these videos here to give you a feel of how you might use this. So at the end of this, we'll use the chat box we'll show the Amelia Earhart Letters and Archives, and we'll watch the clip. It's just about 3 minutes. And at the end of this, you can put in the chat box whether or not you would sell this collection based on what they tell you it's worth, or whether you would keep it because it's valuable as it is. So let's take a look and listen.
I have a collection of letters, personal letters from Amelia Earhart to my aunt, along with a telegram sent to my aunt and her husband when Amelia landed in England on her solo crossing. When my aunt passed away, she left them to me. My aunt's introduction to the aviation community was through her soon-to-be husband, Porter. Porter Adams was part of the early aviation crowd, and when they started dating, she was included in that group. They were close enough so that Amelia agreed to be her maid of honor.
And did your aunt tell you any interesting stories about Amelia Earhart?
She had a great admiration for her. She'd talk about the last flight she made, where we're still looking for her, and said that most of her friends were trying to discourage it because technically she wasn't the most proficient pilot. She was just a great adventurer, tremendous courage, and just had that spirit. And they were concerned because this was a very technical flight. The navigators, everybody knows, had some history with some problems. And the equipment, including the radio, we later found out wasn't very good. So they were concerned that maybe this was a little bit too risky.
The great thing about this collection of letters is that it shows us what some of her other talents are. I think one of the things she had a talent for was public relations. She was a great controller of her image, of the message. And the other thing was she had an incredible entrepreneurial spirit. You have an archive of about 8 letters. There are 4 typed letters, 4 handwritten letters. This one's written on the letterhead of the New York, Philadelphia, Washington Airway Corporation, which we learned from a later letter. She had a role as Vice President of Public Relations for this. And in this letter, she's talking to your uncle about trying to get involved in selling swimming pools. Let me know if you think it's a hot idea, and maybe you'll know someone who can dump in some cash, is the letter. The other letter, over here, this typed letter, is on Hearst International Cosmopolitan Magazine letterhead, and it reminds us of her role as a journalist. She's the aviation editor at Cosmopolitan. And the other letters, too, indicate all of the interests and entrepreneurial efforts that she was involved in promoting aviation. She's a very important figure in aviation history. She's a very important figure in women's history. Prices for her manuscripts have very much appreciated in the last 10 or 15 years. Letters are more valuable than telegrams in general, although that's an interesting telegram on its own. I would value the collection with an auction estimate of $12,000 to $18,000.
Excellent.
All right, so tell me in the chat, sell it or keep it. What do you think? $12,000 to $18,000 for that collection. You selling it? Most people are going to sell it. It would all depend on your affection for Amelia Earhart. Amy's going to keep it. All right. Keep it, but loan it out to exhibits. There's the museum educator and Melissa right there. Sell it, Lori says. Definitely. All right. So I just thought that was kind of fun. And I chose this because I want you to think about, if you think about the collection and how Antiques Roadshow might just be another way to teach kids about a topic. So there was an interesting way to learn about Amelia Earhart, and different from some of the books that we might read about her or the documentaries we might see, to learn a little bit about her from looking at these letters that she shared with a friend, and that she was an entrepreneur and had all these different ideas. This is a different way to have kids look at a famous historical figure as well. Let me get back to my slides here. I lost my slides. I'll have to find them again. Give me 1 second. All my screens disappeared on me. Okay, well, we'll get there eventually. Well, let's just open them up again, I think. There we go. All right, thanks for your patience. Here we go. All right, so the other Antiques Roadshow, I put the link to that particular resource about Amelia Earhart in the chat box. And then there's another one with a globe that I think is also interesting. So if you were gonna think about teaching kiddos about the globe and maps and measurement and things like, and cartography is what I meant to say, and things of that nature, it could be fun to explore that resource as well. So keeping Antiques Roadshow in mind, I'm going to move into talking about multimedia text sets and Hyperdocs. And I will admit that earlier this spring, I really did not know what a multimedia text set was. And the concept was kind of new to me. And I got kind of excited and geeky when I learned about it. So I'm going to put that out to you in the chat. Whoops, Rochelle, I didn't mean to send that to you. I meant to send that out to the group. Hold on. I'm going to put that out to you in the chat. Give me a yes or a no if you know what a multimedia text set is. You've heard of that term, multimedia text set. Of course, I've got the definition on the slide there. So before you saw that, some no's. Okay, I was right there with you just a few months ago. Give me a yes or a no if you know what a Hyperdoc is. Use it in New Zealand. Yep. Yes, we know Hyperdoc. Yep, definitely know Hyperdoc. Not sure. Okay. So I learned about these when I was on the Hyperdocs website, and there was a section in the Hyperdocs website that had, you could search for multimedia text sets. And what it is, and it's often a multimedia text set is basically a document with links with a variety of types of media that kiddos would explore to just get into a new concept or some new content. It's often mistaken for a Hyperdoc. There is a distinct difference between the two. And I think a lot of teachers will compile some links, put them in a document and tell kids to just explore those links. And then they think they're assigning a Hyperdoc. But it's not. The Hyperdoc has the action assigned to it. So the Hyperdoc has kids exploring content, but then doing something to engage with the content. So they might be answering questions. They might be creating some kind of a digital product. They might be connecting with someone and having a conversation about it. Both are self-guided. Both are curated specifically for a specific concept or topic. Both are assigned digitally and are really well aligned using Google Classroom. You might use a multimedia text set with a Hyperdoc as a way of getting kids into the content and allowing them to explore it in multiple ways. And then have them move into a Hyperdoc where they engage with the concepts, share their thinking, answer questions, and create artifacts. So does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Or a thumbs down if you're like, nope, you're going to need to say that a few more times. All right, we got it. So I'm going to show some examples of both here, and you can click on these and follow along. The beauty of this is this one, for example, this is already made and you can steal this. So if you get nothing out of this day, you can take this link and make a copy of it and it becomes yours. This is a list of multimedia text sets that someone else made with other topics in mind. So we've got some books, we've got some writing things, we've even got a few for PE and art and music, some creative ideas. So I taught K1, as most of you know. A Halloween text set would have been right up my alley. So this is a Halloween, create your own Halloween text set. So this is a collection and it would have, here's the complete set for TK, here's the complete set for 3rd through 12th. And then here's some activities that they could do. So check out this collection of activities packaged on slides. And it's got some slides, activities for pumpkin time. Here's some things for Day of the Dead, a whole set for Day of the Dead. Here's some spooky things right here. So these are already made. So if you wanted to grab this Day of the Dead one, here's how students would do this, and so complete the steps below so your students don't request access from me. So you would want to, they would start here and they would complete the activity and then move to the right. So there's slideshows, there's a personal narrative, there's a virtual tour. This one has some ideas linked in. So it is actually more of a Hyperdoc if I'm looking at it carefully. I'm gonna look at a different one right here that I know is more of a Hyperdoc and more of a multimedia text set, not a Hyperdoc. Let's do the habitats, 2nd grade. And they don't just have to be documents, they can be slides. So what is a home? Pick a habitat and explore, write about it in your writer's notebook. So we could talk about the savannah, and it's gonna send us to this thing that the kiddos would explore and go through and look at. Then they go back and explore Antarctica, which takes them to this one. So it's guiding them through a self-guided tour of the content using multimedia ways for them to take in new topics. So that's a multimedia text set. Hyperdocs, as you know, probably can be found on this website here, which is hyperdocs.co. It's free. They also call it Teachers Give Teachers. You can grab templates or samples here. I'm going to open the samples because we do have a couple that haven't seen these before. So taking the samples, these are teachers have made these, and then they have uploaded them to this site. And these are the topics that are available. It's definitely one of those things where you would grab it, you'd probably make a copy of it and make it your own. But we could look at Poetry Month, which is April. And I don't think that's the one. Yep. So elegies, open this one, and this is a elegy hyperdoc. So it starts with watching some videos about these two poets, and then what is an elegy, and it's got a definition linked here that they would read on. There's two poems for them to read right here. And then they have to answer the questions in these boxes. Then they'd come down and read again, some more reading and listening to it. And then they would look at these lines and evaluate them and put their responses in these boxes. Here, there's a video to watch, more things to put in the boxes, more ways to respond here. And they move on and their complexity as they move through these topics. The way these are usually assigned is the teacher grabs them, makes their own copy. So you'd come to file, make a copy, you'd make your own copy. You'd make any adjustments or changes that you feel like your kids are gonna need. And then if you're a Google school, you put this in Google Classroom and you click make a copy for each student. They get their own copy of this and they work on it on their own. And then they would resubmit it back to you. When I did these with my class, it was an ongoing thing. I would give them one on Monday and they would have the whole week to get through that. And it was kind of meant to be that finished, when you're finished with this task, go pick up your Hyperdoc and continue working through that. I also did them in the afternoon, the last hour of the day when they're just, kids get that last hour of the day. Open up your Hyperdocs. Let's move through our Hyperdoc on this topic. Again, self-paced, so they get through it at their own speed, but there's watching, there's reading, there's listening, there's responding. Some Hyperdocs end up with the kids creating something. The templates are really nice on this site because they are built with some frameworks in mind. The one that I like is this 5E template. And so it's already built for you with the engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And so all you would do is go in and type in make a copy of this, type in your things here and insert your links and make sure that whatever idea you create follows along this prompt. And then you would just share this document with kiddos the same way. So the way you could pair a multimedia text set is to create the multimedia text set, have them go through and absorb the topic and explore that, and then have them come to the Hyperdoc and work with that content at a little bit deeper level. So I'm gonna go back to my slides. I'm gonna share the link one more time for our people that need them. If you aren't in the slides, I've got a couple of messages asking for that. So that's my broad overview of these two things. I'm going to show you, I'm going to skip 9 and come back to 9. I'm going to show you an example of one that I created, which is So I had a group of third grade teachers that were all working on an Iditarod unit last year. So I created this for them and I set it up with first a multimedia text set that the kids could use to just dive in and become immersed in the concept of the Iditarod. And so I organized it with watch, listen, read, explore. So watch were videos, listen was audio. So I went looking for podcasts, read were digital books or articles, and then explore were interactive things like games. And I left it out to the teachers to decide how they would use this. But I recommended if it was my classroom, I would give them a couple of days to pick around and really choose what they wanted to do, but insist that they at least look at one resource in each category, that they do it that way. So here we had, these are 2 videos they could watch. These were 2 podcasts that were created by kids talking about the Iditarod. And then these were a Wonderopolis article and then an article on the Iditarod website. This was a game, the Molly of Denali Sled Dog Dash game. And then this was a virtual tour of the Iditarod Museum. So the idea was they just spent a little bit of time. This is how we might open the unit. What is the Iditarod? What can you learn? Instead of this teacher standing there and telling the kids, letting the kids find that information on their own. And then the next thing that we did, what I did was create the Iditarod slot or Hyperdoc. And so I'm going to go back to my drive and find that too. And I did that using Google Slides. And I will say that my preference for Hyperdocs is with slides, not documents, because I find that kids can progress through them a little bit easier and figure out where they left off a little bit easier. Scrolling, we can sometimes get lost in our scrolling of a table. So I created my objectives. I had them start, here's the multimedia text set that's embedded in the Hyperdoc, so they could start with that. And then I put in the 3, 2, 1 reflection, 3 new facts, 2 things I want to learn, and 1 connection to something I already knew. This is just an interactive activity where they need to take these dots and label where it starts and stops and ends. This was a choose a musher to research. So on this one, they would go to this, and this takes them to the Iditarod website that lists all of the mushers that were in the race, and they had to pick one and do some research. And then here's where they could put their research about the musher. And then the final activity was to get on Flipgrid and share what they learned. And this was a fun activity because I shared it with 3 different 3rd grade classrooms last year in different communities. So we had 1 in Twin Bridges, 2 in Three Forks, and the other one in Amsterdam School. And I had all of them studying the Iditarod at the same time. And I gave them the link to the Flipgrid. And so they all got onto the same Flipgrid and shared their learning. And they got to see what 3rd graders in other parts of the state had learned. And that was a really fun, just building empathy. Hey, they read the same book that we did. And hey, they studied the same musher that I did. And so, and I started that by having the teachers get on the Flipgrid and share the resources they were going to use, which was also great for teachers to get that opportunity to collaborate with some other teachers outside of their building as they started to teach the unit, and then get comfortable using Flipgrid. And I know in Billings you aren't approved for Flipgrid yet, and so I would say instead of Flipgrid, maybe use Padlet and record videos on Padlet, and you could share things that way, and it gets the same idea across. So those were the 2 I created. And now I'm going to walk you through how I created them and what my process was. So I start with a Wakelet, and that's just a bookmarking tool. You could use Google Keep, you could use a Google Doc, whatever works for you. But I go out on the internet and I start looking for any kind of information I think kids would like to use to learn. I have my go-to resources and places I like to go to grab things. And I usually start there. And the goal is always to use multiple types of media. It's very easy to find videos, but a little bit harder to find podcasts and to find things that they can read and things like that. So right here is my Iditarod Wakelet. And I just go out and I paste everything I can find, I paste into this Wakelet. So I've got that to work from. And you can use this if you want to as well. And then I kind of admire, what have I got? Well, I've got some videos, I've got a podcast, I've got a game. So there's some good stuff there. And then once I've decided which resources I want to use, I go to a Google Doc insert table. And I colored these tables, I filled these tables with blue. And then I used icons in the insert image, Google insert images, to get these watch, listen, read, explore. I also used the Google search photos to put these photos into the other side just to make it more visual. And then chose 2 of my resources from the Wakelet for the multimedia text set. This could be done in slides. It could be done in Jamboard. It could be done on a Word document. I've seen people do things like this in like the Adobe Spark webpage. It could also be a great Google Site task as well, thinking back to when we learned about Google Sites. Once I created the multimedia text set, then I went to my Hyperdoc. And what I did to plan my Hyperdoc was, I don't know if you use this toolbar over here that has Google Keep. You can see the little Google Keep icon. When you click over here, it brings up any notes that you kept. And so as I was planning the Hyperdoc, I wrote things out in my Google Keep. And so when it was time to build the Hyperdoc, the Iditarod Hyperdoc, I started at the top, and I started with a blank slide presentation, I should say. And then I just dragged these learning objectives that I had written in Keep. I copied and pasted them from Keep to here. Same with my outcomes. This was my list of what the things were going to be. So then when I went to creating my slides, I used that to remind me of the sequence of my activities so that it would go a little bit faster. So all my planning happened in a Keep first, and then I went to a blank slide deck and organized my slides. Always make sure to then added the directions, then added the links. I did the design elements last, and I always I do that myself, like get the meat on there and then add the sauce and the garnish, you know, get the good stuff there. And I always tell the kids that too. We're going to make it pretty later. We got to get our stuff on there first. Then I go into Slides Go, and that was where I found this theme that was sort of a winter Iditarod theme. So Slides Go is one of the many free tools for getting Google Slides and PowerPoint templates. I think Sarah shared this last week as well. And so the slick trick with Slides Go is, once I have my slide presentation and I download that template from Google Slides, make a copy, and it lives in my drive, I can change an existing slide deck to this theme within Google Slides. So I'm gonna go back to my drive and just bring up I'm not using this slide deck anymore. So if I wanted to change the theme of these slides, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna choose change theme. And it brings up all of the ones that live in Google, but I can go to import theme at the bottom. Then it's going to bring up every slide deck that currently lives in my drive, including the one I just put in there, which is this boho style one. So if I select that one, it's going to do its magic, and it's going to change import theme, and it's going to change what I currently have with the new theme, just like that. So very, very slick. I really hate that right now, so I'm gonna undo that because that was not the theme I want for those slides. But you saw how I did that. So I went over to format, or to slide, edit theme, and then import theme. And that's how you can, once you've got your Hyperdoc created, then you can add that theme as your last step so that you have the nice, pretty themed thing. So that was my process. I want to show you a few of the examples that I found out there. So this is the basic Hyperdoc example template. Grab this and use this the first time you do a Hyperdoc because it's all written. Do this, and there's your instructions: engage, explore, explain, apply. And pro tip, the first few times you do Hyperdocs with a group of kids, don't use all these steps. Make it a 3-box Hyperdoc to get started. Do engage, explore, explain. That's totally fine. Build up to apply, share, reflect, and extend as the year goes on and as they get more comfortable learning this way. These are some slides ones. So this is an example of a Hyperdoc for a book called The Chocolate Touch. Again, this is already created. So all you would have to do is make a copy of this and go in and edit it to fit whatever needs you have and whatever you want your kids to do. This is one where this slides key, like Sarah was saying last week with the buttons, as you touch these buttons, they should, well, they're not linked. I think maybe it's this one. Okay, this one has, as you touch these buttons, they take you to that spot in the slide deck. So you keep going back up to this chocolate bar. Chapter 7 takes you to slide 38 and has all of this. So this is that whole book with activities that kids can use to study that whole book, which is really awesome. There's drawing. This one I did with a 7th grade teacher when they were studying the rock cycle. And this is just a Google drawing. And this one has them reading information and then putting what they learn in these boxes. Or this one has them sharing out on a Padlet. This one has them recording like a screencast, a Flipgrid video. The one thing you want to check with these is to make sure that the links would be accessible for your kids. That's the first rule. If you're going to use somebody else's Hyperdoc, go through and click on all the links. In some cases, you'd have to create your own Padlet to link to this so that your kids had access to it. If your school district doesn't have access to BrainPop and wouldn't be able to watch this video, you'd want to change this to a video from a platform they do have access to. If you do have BrainPop access, which is awesome, I love BrainPop, make sure they have their login information on hand as they're doing this. But this is kind of a fun one, although I will say that hand moving around drives me a little bit crazy. And then there's this website, which I've only played with a little bit, but it's called Genially. And if anybody's heard of this, it's kind of like ThingLink, and it allows you to create an interactive image. So again, I created this for the Iditarod unit, and I will present it now. And I took a map of the Iditarod Trail and placed these symbols on it. So when you click on this symbol, this text that I typed in will pop up. When I click on this symbol, it takes us out to where all the checkpoints are from this website. When I click on this symbol, it tells us where it ends. And so the activity is that I want them to click the eye, read the list of checkpoints, add a marker to 2 of them. And so they could, if we were logged in, they could add their own little markers to this as part of the activity. That's the extent that I've played with Genially. I only played with it a little bit for this example, but I did discover that within the site, you could search for other people's multimedia text sets that were really cool and well organized. And so you could click on these boxes and read this text, click on this and read this text and discover this content. So before you create a multimedia text set, this is one of those sites. It starts with a video that introduces the concept. This is one of those sites you might explore and find something within the topic that you were planning to teach. But I will disclaimer, I've only spent about this much time with this site, so I don't know all the ins and outs. But there were some of these great examples. Here's one that goes along with Charlotte's Web. if you teach the book Charlotte's Web, and it looks like this book, and it's got a summary. It comes up like this. It's got information about the author. It's got a list of the characters, some fun facts. So a kind of a fun multimedia way to have kids engage with a book. So those are some examples. I'm going to give you some pro tips for developing these kinds of materials. You want to start with your learning objectives. Like, what do I want my kiddos to do after they've been through this? What are the outcomes? What will they create? Will it be a video of them sharing what they learned? Will it be a Flipgrid thing? Will it be something that they've written up? Will it be an essay or a journal article? So think about what that end looks like. And then really devote time to finding that engaging media, because that really makes these more interesting for kids, is to find bite-sized videos and things like that. I'll say, I think I put on this slide, it was here, I'll put one of them. My sort of go-to resources for finding multimedia. Oh, yep, here, I'll put it right here. I start with PBS Learning Media, of course, but I did before I had this job. And then my next one is Wonderopolis. I always go to Wonderopolis and try and search my content, because that's a great way for kids to read and listen about lots of topics. I go to Epic because attaching an Epic book for kids to read about those topics is really exciting. And then I try to search podcasts. And if I can go to kind of those 4 destinations, then I can find things that I really like. So I'm going to go back to kind of modeling my process. So I'm going to go back to Wakelet. And I started a little topic about bees earlier. I think I have all about bees. So if I were to make a multimedia text set in a Hyperdoc about bees, I started by first grabbing some resources. So I have a Wonderopolis article. I found a podcast. I found a couple of things on PBS Learning Media. So those might be the things that I decide I'm going to insert into my multimedia text set. So then from there, I'm going to go to Drive, and I'm going to choose to make a new Google Doc. Now, one of the coolest things I learned that was a hack was to change the background of my Google Doc. Like, I knew I could do that in slides, but to change the background of my Google Doc, I could go into page setup, and I could go to page color, and I could choose maybe a yellow background for my Google Doc. So now my Google Doc is yellow, which is kind of a little bit more visually appealing. Then I go into insert table, and I had a 3-column table, and I usually just kind of make it really big, and I can delete things later. And I type in the read, listen, watch, explore. And I might leave this at the bottom open for pictures or something like this. Now I want these to be a different color. So I'll go over here to my fill, and the background of those, I might have be, let's see, maybe a brighter yellow. See how that looks. Nope, I don't really like that. So we'll fill that with a different color. We'll go something completely different. We'll just go with our blue again. Now, I think this font is really boring, so I'm going to take the whole table. My favorite font is either Comforta or Red Hot Text. Those Red Hat Text, those are my favorite fonts. Get those up like this. Then I'm going to go through, and I'll go back to my Wakelet. I didn't have a read, so I'm going to have to go back in and find my read. But I do have this podcast, Why Do Bees Make Honey and Why Do They Sting? So I'll copy that link, and under listen, I'll just give the directions. Listen to this podcast about why bees make honey. And I would just put it, so I would link the word listen and put the link like that. I might also search for an icon. I might insert an image and search the web for a listen icon and find the one that I like. I like this one right here. And I might insert that right next to or alongside. Nope, I didn't like that. Right next to that is sort of a little symbol for kiddos. I might do the same thing here, is find an icon, insert image, search web, listen icon. I may make a little ear symbol right here that goes in there. Make that a little bit little. So that's kind of how I start, and just fill in all of the little pieces so that I've got the multimedia text set right there. So I'm going to stop right there and ask you to take on some work time. And this is a lot to do. Like, it did take me, I didn't really time it, but it did take a couple of sessions of creating the text set first, making it pretty, then planning out my Hyperdoc, and then creating my Hyperdoc. You wouldn't have to go through those steps. I would invite you to either explore the Hyperdocs website here and find some that somebody else has already created, or explore these examples from the multimedia text sets and just repurpose something that someone else created. Or if you want to continue start working on something fresh and new, I would encourage you to go back to Antiques Roadshow and think about how Antiques Roadshow might fit into this. So if you were going to do a Amelia Earhart multimedia text set, that video we watched could be included in the multimedia text set. Let's try it again. Oh, there we go. Ooh, all right. Matter and energy and ecosystem. So you've got your template with your read, listen, watch, explore, and you've got an image there. So what's your plan with this, Amy?
So this is one of the units that we do in science in 7th grade. And so this is our curriculum is online. We use a company called Amplify, and I have in the past found some really cool stuff on the PBS Learning Media that really adds to that unit that we do at school already. And it kind of gives more of the story than what our curriculum has. And so I would like to put, you know, each of the things that I've found either in PBS Learning Media or in some other areas, like there's a newspaper article that I found somewhere online, and then a couple of other, like there's a video that they can watch that's not in the curriculum, and it like adds to the content. So I don't know what I would do for Explore yet, but
yeah, I wonder, I mean, PBS Learning Media has interactive lessons, and so you might search, and I can't guarantee that there is anything, but if we go to interactive lesson, these are self-paced lessons where they're designed to hand them off to kids, and then it takes them through the topic. So here's an energy one, maybe would fall under this. So designing your city's energy future. And you can assign this and you launch it, and it takes them through, they watch this, they read this, and then they type in this, and then they go to like the next piece. They're looking at this graph, they're reading through this, and then they can take their notes here. So that might be an example. Those interactive lessons might be a fun interactive that you could do.
I have used one of those interactive lessons in a different unit, not this one. It was about dinosaurs, and they really did enjoy it, and it helped them to, like, they referred back to it again and again later on in the unit. Like they'd say, oh, remember when we read this or we watched that in that PBS thing. So I really thought it worked really well.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, and they're adding more and more every day. So, hey, Shirley, I just saw you there. I'm going to give you our slides so you can get caught up there. Put that in there for you. So that, yeah, thanks, Amy. The other thing you might think is that Genially tool, you might create something on Genially for them to interact with, you know, a map or a graph or something. And I know the New York Times, what is this graph is a really cool website for having kids analyze graphs and charts and ask and answer questions about those. So that kind of an activity could work really cool as well. Let's go to our chat and see what else we looked at. So Lindy looked at some examples on the doc, found some great stuff, but some of the links no longer work and you have to find new resources to replace them. Yep, that's that's always the risk of somebody who shared their stuff freely. The internet, it changes rapidly. So you do have to check those links and hopefully you can find things that you've got that you can fill in. Rochelle looked at Genially and messed around with that. There is a lot on that one. And I was super excited when I found it and just haven't played with it enough, but I know there's a lot there. Lori looked through the resources and templates and some samples. And Megan really enjoyed the examples. And so did Melissa, some ideas to try out. Jessica's got one for us to look at. Awesome. Let's take a look. Ooh, look at this. Solid, liquid, gas. So watch this episode of Hero Elementary. And then you've got your read, solid or liquid in the book. Awesome. This looks great. And that's an epic one. I love how you just have the epic book so they know exactly what they're looking for. Very cool. Jessica, do you want to unmute and tell us your plan for this?
Yeah, so we do a science unit that's all about properties of matter. So I thought this would be a cool thing to incorporate with my kiddos on that. Yeah, I had to hurry up and try and find stuff on like Epic and then the watch part, but I think it'd be really cool to use for next year too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got a great start and then just a matter of filling it in with those links and then playing with your images. So nice job. Thanks for sharing. Callie, you found a multimedia text set and a Hyperdoc pair on the Lewis and Clark that look really fun. Yeah, Lewis and Clark is one that there's so much to cover. So much information. And so you're giving them a text set or something like that to explore and kind of pick and choose what they're interested in. Awesome. Shelby's got one for us. Awesome. Oh, I love it. Read, watch, listen. Sensing light and sound. Light, what is sound? I love your YouTube icons there. Great visual. Shelby, can you unmute and tell us about this and what you're planning to do?
Yeah, so similar to Jessica, light and sound is one of our first grade units. And so like she said, I just was quickly trying to find some stuff in there, but I think it would be really cool to add more to this and maybe get it a little more specific so they can just explore more of that unit beyond what the curriculum gives us.
Yeah, that's great. Love it. Nice job. I love the icons and the colors, and hopefully you've got a good start. And as with all of these things you create in the digital form, you make a copy of it and it's like a template, you know, so the read, watch, listen can stay and you can get rid of the title and the links and just add into that framework so that you've always got a predictable template. And then kiddos get to where they've seen this lots of times and they know exactly what to do when you assign it. So that helps in managing using these kinds of things throughout the year as well. So excited. You all did such a nice job sharing and hopefully that was fun. I really loved all the things that you had to talk about. I wanted to share this link here, kind of switching gears a little bit, but I talked at the beginning about Hiding in Plain Sight and the film that's going to be coming out in today. It actually airs on Montana PBS today. And if you're going to be at the event in Billings, if you fill out this form, that will let you express your interest in watching the film and earning credit to do so. And on the form, you can tell me if you're going to come to the event tonight in Billings at the Alberta Bear Theater, or if you're going to watch it on Montana PBS at 8 p.m., or if you'd like to stream it on the PBS website between now and July 25th. And then what this does is I will, after sometime next week, get a hold of you and give you a reflection activity and ask you to complete that. And if you watch all 4 hours of the film and do the reflection activity, you can earn 5 OPI units for that exercise. If you just get 2 units of the 2 hours of the film, you can earn 3 credits. So there's some flexibility. And as I said, this film, it's about raising awareness about youth mental illness. And it does feature kids from Montana and a therapist from the Billings area named Key Dunning. And it is hard to watch. It will stick with you. The youngest participants, kids in the film, talking about their struggles are as young as 11 years old, talking about having sad thoughts and suicidal thoughts and things like that. So in that respect, it's hard to watch. And so I would highly recommend, if you do watch it, make sure you're ready for that and have someone on hand to talk to when you're done. The public screening event, I'm counting on to be kind of emotional tonight as people see themselves or family members in the film. But it is definitely something that all educators should watch, because when it comes to identifying kids and what they're struggling with, I highly recommend viewing the film. So it will be an opportunity this summer to engage with the film and watch it. And then this fall, I'm going to be offering some teacher training using the film in different ways. We're going to have a live event. We're going to have some live events in Bozeman and Billings and Miles City over the school year. And we're going to do some more virtual training using the event as well. And then Key, the therapist that's in the film, has partnered with me and will be coming with me to these events and sharing her insight about how to identify mental illness and what are some practical strategies you can take in order to support your kiddos that are struggling with these things. So that I just wanted to share that with all of you, and look forward to seeing the film at some point during this summer. So I think at this point, I guess I'm going to ask if we have any other questions or comments about multimedia text sets or Hyperdocs, our topic today. Good. Glad it was helpful. Glad it was interesting. I really nerded out hard when I first learned about this topic. It's like, this is fun. I like gathering all this information and creating these things. We're at the end of our program here. We will not have Media Lab next Monday because it's the 4th of July. And so nobody needs to be working on the 4th of July, but we will come back the following Monday, July 11th. And I believe, I'm going to check real quick. I think it's Tracy Piltz sharing with us about PBS Kids Scratch Junior. Yep, Tracy Piltz. So PBS Kids Scratch Junior, which is our coding app. It looks like Scratch Junior. So if you're already using Scratch, it'll just talk about the curriculum that goes along with the PBS version of the app. Tracy's super fun, and we have some fun coding themed prizes to give away with that one. So hopefully you had a good time and give back some of your time today. And if you're in Billings tonight, please come and say hi. Have a wonderful 4th of July, and we'll see you back here on the 11th.